Thank you for joining us tonight. My name is Barry Erickson, and I'm Community Engagement Coordinator at Wheaton Public Library. Tonight, we are delighted to bring you Traveling Post-Pandemic, an update from the industry. We will find out where we can travel safely, the status on cruising, and what the current requirements are for testing and vaccinations. After spending more than 14 years in the travel industry, Marcela Nelson created her own company, Stressfree Travels, to remove the stress of travel planning for her clients. From Disney parks to adult-only river cruises, from all-inclusive resorts for family reunions to girls-only weekends, Stress-Free Travels provides a smarter way to travel. So with so much expertise and important information to share with us tonight, Marcela, I'm anxious to turn the screen over to you. You are muted.
Again, thank you, Barry, for the introduction. Hi, everybody. Once again, my name is Marcela. I'm with Stress-Free Travels. And we will be talking a little bit about what's going on in the travel industry after this crazy almost year and a half of cancellations and things changing every day. So first, we're going to start talking about cruises, because I think that's the most the industry that got the biggest impact with ships straining and things like that. So one of the things that they have to do, so CDC set up a guideline for them to come back. And pretty much the guideline was this, which is everybody has to, 100% of the passengers and crews has to be tested. Mask wearing was mandatory. Physical distancing terminals on board ships and private islands. Ventilation, so they have to change the ventilations of the cruise ships. Medical capability, so they need to make sure they need to have a good response plan that will be approved by the CDC. And also shore excursions, they'll only be permitted by cruise operators so they can follow the same protocol. Well, as we got closer to the release, we just have one big release out of Florida this weekend. The governor of Florida contests those requirements, and they won in court, saying that the cruise line cannot request proof of vaccine for their from their passengers. So with that being said, Texas and Alaska trying to jump aboard on the same lawsuit. They haven't got a response yet. As of right now, only Florida is that. So what does that mean? No cruise ship can require you to be vaccinated. So for example, the one that left the Bahamas, and then they have 2 passengers that was in the news this week that were test positive for COVID. One was symptomatic. The other one has, I think, a really low symptoms. They're all younger than 16. So technically they didn't have to be vaccinated at the time. So because of that, Royal Caribbean decided to change and come up with different, they just released yesterday, different requirements to how to be able to fly with them. But before we get to that, I just want to like to point it out that more than 400,000 passengers plus crews have been sailing in more than 10 major cruise markets in parts in Europe, Asia, and South Pacific since July last year. So even though we're only finally releasing those cruises now out of the US, they're been going on, they're been testing this in Europe, Asia, and South Pacific. And one of the things that before that was to be approved to be released on the US by the CDC, they have to do a trial. So for those of you that used to cruise, you can see the destinations change and the ports change. So a lot of people who already have their cruise set up with different ports, it changed completely now because all those ports have to follow those protocols. If something happens again, they have a plan B and plan C and how to figure it out. So back to Royal Caribbean. So now the requirements from them, which Norwegian hasn't said anything yet. They postponed the release of their cruises, but I think everything's pretty much going to be kind of the same baseline, which is right now, if you like to show your proof of vaccination for everybody who is, because they strongly recommend everybody who's 12 years and older, you don't have to pass through all the requirements. However, if you choose to not show your proof of vaccination, you have to do a few things. First of them, if you are not unable to provide documentation, you will be considered unvaccinated. And all their guests must go to additional COVID-19 testing at their own expense, provide proof of valid insurance policy with sufficient medical coverage for needs related to positive COVID-19 test results, and follow the health protocol described below, which are based on the guidance from the CDC. And if the guest does not wish to undergo or pay for additional testings or follow those protocols, they will be Royal Caribbean will give a full refund for that. One of the insurance requirement is that's only between August 1st all the way to December 31st. So everybody who is unvaccinated or failed to prove of vaccination, that person needs to have at least $25,000 of medical expense coverage by the insurance, or $50,000 per person for quarantine, and $50,000 per person for quarantine and medical evacuation related to COVID-19 test results. So they pretty much just want to cover their bases. They want to make sure that if you get sick, you'll be able to pay for it, pretty much. But this so far is only between August 1st to December 31st. And also, guests under the age of 2 must go under. So not only you get tested before you get on a cruise ship, you get tested while you're there, and you get tested before you leave. And you have to pay for those tests. And if you're doing a 6 nights or less, it's $136. Or if you're gonna do 7 nights or more, it's $178. So that's pretty much what we have right now for them. So technically, if you're living out of Florida, and pretty sure Texas and Alaska is going to be the same, they cannot ask you for proof of vaccination. They can ask, but you don't have to show them. But they have all these other requirements that you have to follow. You just want to make sure everybody's safe. So, and the Royal Caribbean was the first one to impose that. And I think that's going to be kind of a little bit of the general situation right now, is that, okay, if you're not vaccinated, we're going to be testing you more often, and you have to cover the costs for that. And I think that's it for cruise. Do we have any questions?
We don't have any questions right now, but I'm sure some things might come up. This is a good time just to remind everyone that if you would like to enter any questions, please go ahead and open up your Q&A window and type them in there. But for now, you can go ahead, Marcela. Thank you.
So now we're going to talk about a few countries that I open. So I just put the 3 major ones, which is the first one, which is Spain. And if you let me, I'll be talking about Spain the whole night, because that's one of my favorite places to go. So effective June 24, all US citizens can travel from the United States to Spain if they present upon arrival a Spain QR code, which is through the Spain travel health portal. So, and that's a generic thing. Pretty much every country is doing that, including Hawaii. So it's just a bunch of questions that you fill it out, generate a QR code. Once you get to the airport, you show them, they scan that, and they tell you, if you can go, if you cannot go. On that information will be if you're vaccinated, not vaccinated. If you have tests, that's where you unload your test if it's required, and tell you where you're staying, if something happens, if they can track you. So there is no requirements right now. So they are not going to ask for a vaccination or a negative COVID test if you're traveling from the United States to Spain. You still have to fill it out their QR code, but pretty much just so they know where you're staying. I think that's pretty much what it is. And you got to make sure you don't have a fever, all those regular health questions that you get asked. And then the second place we're going to talk about is Greece, which so many people are there now, which is pretty excited. So Greece is ready to welcome all visitors. They have been open for a while, but only from European Union citizens to go. So they start open slowly. They prepare all the restaurants, they space it out and things like that. But now it's open for pretty much almost everybody, right? There's always a few countries, but it's open for Americans. So one of the questions for open. So to travel to Greece, a vaccination certificate issued by appropriate body in the traveler's country of origin. So, if you're vaccinated, you just bring your card with you. But if you're not vaccinated, you're required to show your negative PCR test. That has to be conducted 72 hours before traveling. And again, as I said, this is going to be pretty much a generic thing for most of the countries, is that or you show your vaccine card or you just get tested before you leave and show the results. And always keep in mind, the vaccines has to be Moderna, Pfizer, or Johnson & Johnson. And there's one more, or the biotech as well. So those are the few, Sinovac biotech, that's the name of it, or AstraZeneca. There's some vaccinations that are not, we don't have here, but those are the vaccinations that are permitted. And for the test, it's the same thing, has to be for a credential test. So if you get to the website, it's going to give a list of places that you can get tested, the tests that will be accepted by them. So you do that. And then the third option will be, if you already have COVID before, you just got to prove that you test positive, and then for the past 2 to 9 months. So they assume that because you had it before, you're immune right now. So those are the 3 requirements. So, or you're vaccinated, you have a proof of vaccination, or you did a test 72 hours prior and it's a negative PCR test, or you already have COVID and you can prove that you have COVID. You have a positive test from 2 to 9 months before. There is no isolation is no longer required, because before, when you go there, you have to be there for 14 days and things like that. So there's anything else for, I think that's it for Greece. So let's hop for the next country, which will be Rome. So Rome just starting, begin June 21st. And right now, this goes only to July 30th, which COVID document compliance with Italian and the EU regulation, commonly called as a green pass. We allow travelers from the United States to enter Italy without having to self-isolate, quarantine upon arrival, or and undergo testing after quarantine. So what does the green pass is? It's, once again, once you download that, if you have a vaccination, that's where you're gonna download your card. And for specific for Italy, the only vaccinations they accept is the Pfizer, biotech, Moderna, Johnson & Johnson, or AstraZeneca. So those are the only ones. And you need to have your second dose 14 days prior to arrival. Or again, a medical certificate confirming that you have recovery from COVID, dated no more than 6 months before departure. So for Greece, for example, you can do it for 9 months. Now cannot be more than 6 months before departure. And also, or a negative PCR test 48 hours prior departure. So as this is a common thing. So again, vaccination card or a medical certificate that you have COVID, you just recovered from COVID, or a PCR negative test. And if by any chance you cannot obtain the green pass, you have to isolate in your home or hotel for 10 days. And then after that, you have to do another test to be allowed. So for by any chance you didn't get a chance to do your PCR test 72 hours before you arrive in Italy, they're gonna have you self-isolate for 10 days. And after that, you're gonna do a test. So then you'll be allowed to do it. But hopefully you'll not get to that. And also there's no more curfew, which they were having that before, but Italy suspended that. And I think that's it for those are the three countries that I picked, because those are the three places we're more excited to see. Do we have any questions regards to that?
Yes, Marcela, I'm wondering, how does the traveler know whether they need to get this green pass or the QR code, or how do they know which regulations to follow?
Which go? So each country is different. And one of the things is changing every single day. So if you're not, the best way to do, the easiest way to do is just do, work with a travel agent, because she's going to do all that job for you. But if you're like to book yourself, just check the country's website. Each country has especially their specific page for COVID, and see what the requirements are. And then on their website, it's going to give you a link for all those three countries that I went through. They all have the link right there where I could just, some of this has an app. Most of them actually have an app that you can download on your phone, or a website that you can log in and fill out all that information. So always go to the country's website, and they'll have the most updated information. And always check a week before you go, check 2 days before you go, because you never know.
Right. We're getting used to things changing fairly often, aren't we?
Right. Yes.
Someone is asking, you provided those other great questions those other great countries that many of us are dying to get to. But someone is asking about Ireland and France. Any specific information about them that you know of?
I haven't got any information to that yet.
Okay.
I believe France probably will be the next to be fully open. Ireland, not so much. The smaller countries, they're more restrict because they want to make sure they keep their low numbers. And they're pretty much just waiting and watch to see how those big countries are dealing with before they open. So I'm pretty sure they're open for the EU countries. Mm-hmm. For the US, I'm not sure yet. I don't think they are yet.
Okay, great. Thank you. And we'll do just one more question before we let you move on. Someone was asking back to cruises for a minute, information about Australia or New Zealand cruises.
Not yet. Actually, I was just reading about it because Australia is still trying to catch up in a way. That was just in the news the beginning of this week. They haven't set up the rules that has to be followed. And they're being pushing to get the requirements so they can start working towards to that. So that's going to take a little longer, just because they haven't even set up a plan of what they require for the cruise companies to do and things like that. They haven't set up that yet. So that's a big pressure on the government and their health department to create that.
Okay, so they're still putting that framework in place.
Put it together,
okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Great. I'll let you go on. We'll definitely get to some more questions in a little bit.
Okay. All right. So after that is Disney, because again, that's my second happiest place. And so I can talk about Disney for hours and hours. So Disney opened June last year, really restricted. They were going on a less than 40% capacity. A lot of restaurants were not open, but now that everything is changing, so they are fully 100% capacity. Restaurants are open. Every week they release another restaurant that's open. Not all the resorts are open yet, but they're already planning to open most of them. There's still a few of them that still doesn't have a reopening date yet. But because this year's their 50th anniversary for Walt Disney World Florida, so there's a huge thing going on. Actually, if you want to get tickets for the October 1st, it's the big day. You can't find it anymore. That's how crazy it's been going. So things to know about going to Disney. So first of all, you need to make reservations. So just buying the ticket, it's not enough. Once you go to the website, you see it's going to tell you to check, make sure that those dates are available for you. Specific the park that you want to go, it's available for you to go. Because you can buy the ticket, but if you don't make the reservation, you cannot get in. And that's something that I think they're going to keep, that's going to stay for a while. I don't see any changes on that sometime soon. So, so that being said, once you purchase the tickets, you got to make the reservations. To make the reservations, you have to have a my Disney Experience account. That's how you'll be able to make the reservation. So it's a two-step process. Doing that, you're gonna accept that you're gonna follow the rules, which when that started, was the masks and the distance and all that stuff. So they made that so first of all, they know how many people are getting in the park. They can control that. But also they make sure you are aware of all the requirements and don't have any further issues with that. So once you do that, those are the two main things. So the requirements right now, it's mask only on public transportation, as it is a federal law too, right? You can get in a bus and get an airplane, you still need to wear a mask. So for their transportation, they're still requiring open in the parks, you don't need to do anymore for anything else if you're fully vaccinated. They ask you if you're not vaccinated to wear your mask, especially for the kids. But they are not checking you as much as they were before, because before you cannot even think about it, not wear a mask. So they're more relaxed now, and make sure people are more conscious about it. If you don't think you're safe, put your mask on. So the parks are getting more full now since the capacity is getting bigger. Fast passes, which is the secret to do Disney in the right way, they're not back yet, but they're bringing the machines back this week. So I believe it's coming pretty soon, because there was no reason for them to open the machines again if it's not coming back. As of right now, there's no fast pass. There's just, you got to stay in line and just wait. But I think that is coming. Let's see what else for Disney. I think that's it for Disney World. Disneyland just opened not too long ago. Their requirement was the same. Before it was only for, when they announced they will be open, they said we are only open for California's residents. Well, that changed. Now everybody can go. And again, if you're vaccinated, you don't need to wear a mask. If you're not vaccinated, they ask you that please wear a mask. Yeah, most of their resorts are open. So they're planning to open July 2nd, I'm sorry. So July 2nd, that's when the Disneyland hotels are open. The park open first, the resorts are open slowly later after that. I think that's it for Disney. Any questions for Disney before I switch parks?
You mentioned that they're having that big anniversary. Is there anything in particular that is happening because of that anniversary?
So the whole celebration starts in October. It's going to go for 18 months. It's just pretty exciting. So fireworks are coming back. Actually, fireworks are coming back pretty soon. It's not going to be before that. But they repaint the castle. They're doing totally different decorations, and they're doing special events in the calendar through the whole 18 months period. But on the 1st, I think October 1st is going to be the big opening of celebration. And then from that on, they're going to have every day we're going to be a little something different, so meaning they'll have different costumes and things like that.
Great. Lots of fun there.
Yes.
Someone is asking about flying and airlines. They say, I postponed a flight to San Diego recently, so they're not quite sure about flying. How are airlines handling passengers? Are there certain airlines that are perhaps safer to fly on?
It's a little tricky question. I've been flying since, when did I start back? August. I went back flying, and sometimes I would do 3 or 4 flights a day, and they're been cleaning every single flight. They go in, clean all the tray tables, everything, and then they use their specific spray to disinfect. So it is pretty safe, in my opinion. I think that the hardest part on that is who's going to be sitting next to, right? Because you don't know how that person deals with that. But in the sense of the airline itself, they are being pretty safe, most of them. I haven't seen all of them personally, but most of them that I have seen, they're being really, really careful. In regards to mask, it's a federal mandate. So they're not happy to wear the mask. You have to wear a mask. Everybody has to wear a mask. That's pretty much what it is. And once you check in, you can see that you have to say that you accept a few times, not just once. Once you check in a few times, you have to say that you agree with. So once you get on a plane, you better keep your mask on. That's just how the rules are. And until that changes, until federal changes, they're not going to change that. So all the crews, everybody is wearing them. Passengers have to wear them. And also, it's a federal law now to not disrespect, but be more aggressive to crew members and actually get a fine. So if you don't want to be wearing a mask for 3 or 4 hours, whatever a flight is, just don't get on a plane.
Right.
Because they're being pretty restrictive about that.
Right. And do you have a sense of how close to capacity the flights are?
Full capacity now. Full capacity now. They are not. Especially Delta was blocking the middle seats. They are not blocking anything anymore.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
Great. We'll let you go on, and then we'll save some of these questions for later.
Okay. So now we're going to talk about Disney. You have to talk about Universal because, they're right there. So Universal has been the most relaxed one from all of them. So they're the first ones to not enforce the mask usage once was open. Space between all of them, they're the more laid back one for all the 2 parks in corporation. So, there again, they always use the same, face cover is no longer required to fully vaccinated, but they also do not require proof of vaccination. So it's pretty much up to you how you want to do it. So, and they do have all their, I think there's only one resort in Florida that's not open. All the other, their resorts are open. And Universal's being full working. They're open before Disney did. So they're all ahead of everybody on that sense. Plus they just opened a new attraction as well. So it's full force back there. I think that it's it too. And then for Universal Hollywood, is there, just again, following the state of California recommendations. Face cover should be worn if you're not fully vaccinated. They encourage everybody to keep safe distance. However, it's not marked down. They are not chasing you, or pushing you away if you're too close to whoever you are. So that's for the 2 main parks. Do you have any questions regards to parks?
I don't know if there's any questions about amusement parks. Someone actually has a question about national parks. If you want to take that tangent here.
Okay.
The person says, we're hearing that certain parks are just overrun with visitors, perhaps because other places don't feel as safe. Any sense of that from your industry?
Yeah, so because if you think about it, last summer, that was the only option you have, was to go to parks, and some of those were not even open. So a lot of people feel safer. So that was one of the things that increased right now, which I will be talking. That's my next slide, is about rental cabins and RVs. And because you cannot travel overseas, so might as well hit the road, and people feel more safe. That way, you're going to be in your car, you're in your RV, you're not going to be in touch with people, and that it's going to be an open air. And in the sense that fill it up all the national parks. I don't think it's going to be as busy as was last year, but just because people can travel more now. But I think it is great in a way because people get to discover, people forgot national parks and things that we have in our backyard, and how people are doing that. So, because usually June, July is always busy anyways on those parks, right? More than usual. So last year and this year's being a little special, busy, but I don't think I think it's just because what time it is, the summer, but I don't think it is more than was last year. That's, I think, my personal opinion, because see more people, just because people has more options to travel now,
Right.
national park is not their only option.
Right, we definitely have more options this year. And
Mm-hmm.
one last question before we let you go on. Someone was asking, back to cruises,
Mm-hmm.
are European river cruises open and sailing?
They are. Each I have to go back to check that, and maybe person can send me an email. I can check a little more about it. Because as far as I know, they're really restricted for only UN citizens, since the whole Europe was closed. But now, because the ports are closed, I know they're coming back. I haven't got any specific information for any of the Viking cruises yet. I haven't heard anything, so I'm assuming they're kind of still taking a little bit stack, but hasn't come to the US yet, in the sense of for us, for US citizens to be traveling on them.
Okay, all right. Well, we'll let you go on, and we'll get to some more questions later.
Right. So now we'll be talking, as I was saying before, because of people cannot go anywhere. So last summer, the only option will be if people finally start to rediscover the vocational homes, right? Places that you can go, you'll be on your own with your family, you'll be out of your house on a safe environment. So that was a huge boom last year and this year. And then you can see here from South Carolina, especially for us here, is like one of the calmest places because you can just drive there. And then I also have Traverse City, was one of my favorite places, so you can do beach if you want, or you can do a cabin if you want. Or even if you want to go a little further, Hawaii, you can rental houses in Hawaii. You can get your family and go there. So the fact that, if you don't feel safe going through hotels, should not stop you from visiting other places. And even further than that, it's not just on the US, you can do that overseas, and people think it's going to be, it has to be this luxurious, big thing. And not really, So for example, this is a house that you can you can rent in Dublin, which is only part of the house. But I believe this is a three-bedroom house. So you're a 50-minute drive from Dublin. You can go with your kids, spend a week there and explore the whole coast. It's not as expensive as everybody thinks. And it's another option. Well, once opens for you to go, once you're allowed to go. But that is something that people don't think about it. And also, I'm going to stop sharing this one. I'm going to share something else. So just hold on with me there. One of the great options it is too, especially if you're have some special event going on and you have a group of friends or just a family reunion, you can rent villas. So for example, this one, it is in Ocho Rios, Jamaica. This is an 8-bedroom house. You can fit 16 people there, and have 9 bathrooms. But that is also another option, that you'll be on your bubble, right? The bubble is the big word that we use this whole thing. You'll be with your friends, with your family, safe, and on a place that it's pretty nice. In this situation, this specific villa, I do not have the price, because the prices change when you're going, but it comes with a butler, with somebody to clean. And it is also a great option for everybody who wants to, travel but doesn't want to be around people, but want to be out of the regular routine. And we have those villas everywhere, not only in Jamaica. You can do Mexico, you can do Greece, you can do all over the world. And I think it's such a great option to travel as well. So if you don't have to stay in hotels and resorts and things like that. Right, stop here and let me go back to the previous one. And anybody has any questions in regards to vacation homes, rentals?
I don't know if there are any questions about vacation homes, although those may be coming as we keep the Q&A open, of course. But there were a couple of questions about the theme parks, if we can go back to those for just a moment. What type of cleaning protocols do they still have in place?
So for example, and I wish I had put a picture of that. I have a client that was at Pop Century, one of the Disney resorts, and his job was to wash the handrail. That's all he did. He just have a spray and a rag. People touch it, he would go out and clean it. That's how Disney was. On top of that, you walk in the park, you see people just standing by, the little gates and things like that. And then people will touch it, they'll go there, they will clean it. So it's been pretty, since the beginning of COVID, they were really, really on top of that, especially Disney World, because that's the one that I know that I saw. They're really make sure, and there was sanitized everywhere you can think of. And Disney always being really good about it. One of the times that I went, there was a mosquito going on. I think it was the Zika virus at the time. And we have bug sprays everywhere. There was bug spray stations everywhere. I didn't see one mosquito when I was there. But they're always being on top of that. So I think they're removing some of the sanitizers from the parks, because it was pretty much every 5 steps you see one. But they're still, you don't see papers on the floor and things like that at Disney.
Right. And someone is asking, you mentioned sort of in passing that there was a Florida resort that wasn't open, and there was a question about which one that was.
Oh, the one for the Universal ones.
Yes.
If I have the name of it, give me 1 second. My paper does not say. I know. I'm trying to think of the top of my head which one is not, because I know Hard Rock is, Low is. I will get back to you on that one, because it's just skip out of my mind.
Fair enough. Fair enough. Why don't you go ahead and we'll save these other questions for the next break.
Sure. So can we go here and repeat it? So the best, I always call the the stress-free option is the all-inclusives, right? So they were the first ones, especially, we are talking about Mexico. They were the first ones to open. They're the first ones to follow the guideline, pretty much because that's what their money is, right? So they have to do that. There was a big blow to the area of Mexico that got, because everything got canceled. So they are the first one to create protocols, which was amazing, like from disinfecting your suitcases to spread out the chairs and the seats, because they have the space, right? They have the logistics to do that. They reduced amount of, they went down to 50% capacity. So that way they will be able to cater for that. And then once the US started requiring the test, coming back, they still is required, if you leave the country to come back, you need to have a COVID test. So when they, the federal government came up with that, they are the first one to start offering. So most of the resorts offer for free. If you stay 3 or more nights, you can get a free COVID test for free. Some of them, for at least the 2 first people in the room. So I always say they are the stress-free option, because first, because it's all inclusive, you don't pay anything, you already pay up front. And the second one, because they are ready to adapt. They work really close to government, just because that's their, their main income. So they have to. And the other thing, because there's so many resorts, so many options, especially from Mexico, that's where you get the most for your buck. Because when you have many options, you can find prices from a week from, $2,000 for 2 people to all the way to $15,000. So you can always find the resort that goes for your budget. So, and always keep in mind, you get what you pay for. But there is no, I would say there's no excuse to not go, because you can find for 3 or 4 days for $900. Depends when you're going and how flexible you are and what are your requirements. But it is the best option for traveling. It is a Mexican resort. It was easy to adapt, and they have the best prices. The one thing that's really interesting is that starting mid of May, the prices was just going crazy, because people start flying more, and we have all these peoples with everybody with this travel credit, and that's go for every sector. So there's something to keep in mind is right now the demand is really high, and when you have a higher demand, prices go higher. So one of suggestions to going back to the cruise part of it, if you were booking a cruise and you have cruise credit, just book it, because it's going to get harder and harder. So if you want to go, maybe next year, we have cruises there having scheduled for 2022, 2023. So if you know, like, maybe I don't want to go in August, so just go ahead and book it. Just use your credit, because the closer you get, the harder it will be for you to find, and more expensive it will be. I think that's it. Let's see if I have anything else to talk about. Yep, I think that's pretty much it. So and go back to the cruises again. Cruises have all those rules and everything, but there is no foolproof, right? Nothing's foolproof. So as I say, I was talking about the 2 cases that Royal Caribbean have on a fully vaccinated cruise ship. They're younger than 16, so you never know. So that's why changes keep coming, to make sure we can get on a better medium way that everybody can feel safe and traveling again. But as I hope I was able to show you guys a few options that you have, that that you don't have to stay home. You can still, there are places that you can go. Depends of how is your comfortable level, but you should be able to do something fun in the summer.
Yes, and we are already, aren't we? On the topic of cruises, someone is asking about Alaska cruises that might originate out of Vancouver, Canada. Are there any different restrictions for those?
Right now, Alaska is the same boat as Florida, so they are trying to avoid of asking for uh, vaccinations cards. Like you don't have to be vaccinated, but that's the only thing they're just fighting for. But there's no more restrictions for Alaska.
Okay, great, thank you. And not necessarily for cruises, but someone's wondering if there are any restrictions just generally with Alaska or Hawaii, being that they're outside the continental United States.
Hawaii was the most restricted one. They're the first ones, well, here to create a QR code. So when they decide finally open, you have to do the QR code. You have to get a test before you go. They will track. The test has to be from CVS, Walgreens. There was a list of places that you can get vaccinated. Tested. And if you're not from these places, you just not get in. And because each island is a different county, so every county has a different rules. So you was always keeping track where you're going, and you have to show up again and fill out on whatever form that island requires you to do. And then even with that, that's how they caught a couple who were living in Hawaii, but they test positive, and they still tried to sneak in back to the island, and they went to prison because of it, because they're trying to keep they're really on top of it to keep things pretty. But not as far as I know, if you're vaccinated, you don't have to do the test. If you prove a vaccination, you should be cleared to go.
Great, thank you. And you mentioned the concern about going ahead and booking cruises because there will be a lot of people wanting to take advantage of their credits. Do you see anything similar in just booking flights, that because everyone is so anxious to start traveling again, that flight prices have gone up?
Oh yeah, for sure, and went up just because there was just a lot of demand. And as far as I know, they're still waiving changing fees so you can book. And if you have to change the date, they will not gonna charge you for it. Only the difference of the prices of the ticket, because usually it's $150 to $200 to change a flight ticket. So they are avoiding that. Most of the airlines are. And then the only thing you're gonna pay is the different prices of it. And one of the things that I like to, and I always tell my clients, is that insurance now more than ever is important. And why is that? Because it's an investment. Travel is investment. You're putting $2, $3, $4, $10,000 on it, and you want to make sure your investment is safe. So you always tell them, check with your health insurance. See if something happens, does your insurance gonna cover you? It's gonna reimburse you for any medical that you need. When you buy a ticket, make sure that you'll be able to change that, what the rules are. Do you pay $10 more, $50 more to be able to get a full refund? This day and age is worth it to do that. And if you get a package, sometimes buying the insurance from whatever travel package you're getting from is cheaper, because how they work is that they're not gonna check who is going, how old are you, or things like that. For them, it's just a big package. It could be more expensive, could be cheaper, depends. For younger people, sometimes it's not worth it. Sometimes just worth it to do an individual insurance, because if you're young, they're not gonna charge you that much. So, but either way, or check with your credit card. Sometimes your credit card will be able to give you refunds and things like that. So, but always find a way to get insurance. It's investment that you're doing, and you want to make sure you're protected.
Right, thank you. And actually that answered the next question that had come in about getting, whether you thought it was worthwhile to get travel insurance. And obviously you talked about a couple of different ways that you might cover things that way.
Right.
Well, I will go ahead and start to wrap things up, but if you have additional questions, please go ahead and type those in the Q&A. But we certainly want to thank Marcela Nelson of Stressfree Travels for generously giving her time and effort to provide the presentation. Following tonight's program, I will send out the link to Stressfree Travels website and an email address to reach Marcela and an email. If you are watching the recording of tonight's presentation, you may request those resource links by emailing me at ce@wheatonlibrary.org. That's CE for community engagement. The recording of this program will be available on the library's YouTube page within about a week. So I'm just looking one more time to see if there are any additional questions. It looks like perhaps you have answered them all. So thank you again so much, Marcela. Thank you for everyone who attended tonight. We certainly have many great dreams of travels of places that we would like to go, and now we are much better informed about how to get there. So thank you so much. Have a great evening and take care, everyone.